Farming was supposed to save us, but the bones tell a different story. 10,000 years ago, humans stopped hunting and started planting seeds. Before farming, Europe was wild forests, grasslands, no fences, no fields. People moved with the seasons, following herds, catching fish, gathering whatever grew. They owned almost nothing, carried everything on their backs, free to go anywhere. Then, around 10,000 years ago, in what is now Turkey, someone planted the first seeds. Seeds, animals, and diseases. That's what the farmers brought with them into Europe. They built villages. They raised cattle. They grew wheat. Every textbook calls it progress. The greatest step forward in human history. More food, bigger families. Cities writing the beginning of everything. The drop showed up in every European region tested. Spain, Germany, Britain, Greece. 10,000 kilometers of coastline. 100 different climates. The same result everywhere. The farming revolution spread from Turkey into Europe along two routes. One along the Mediterranean coast, one up the Danube Valley, both carrying seeds, animals, and diseases into a continent full of healthy hunters who had lived there for 40,000 years. But ancient DNA proved that story hides something ugly. Farming was killing them. The first farmers were shorter than the hunters before them. Their teeth were rotting, their bones were thin, and their skulls showed signs of constant hunger. The proof starts with height. Hunters stood about 5'10" on average. The drop wasn't gradual. It happened fast. Within a few generations of switching to grain, every region showed the same thing. The moment farming arrived, people shrank. Farmers dropped to 5'5", 10 centimeters shorter across entire populations. That's not a small change. That's what chronic hunger looks like, written into bone. And the DNA confirms it. Immune genes were under intense pressure during the Neolithic, changing faster than at almost any other point in human history. Same region, same century, one group thriving, the other falling apart. The only difference was food. These tiny holes in the eye socket roof are called cribra orbitalia. Parodic hyperostosis was even worse. The skull roof itself became spongy and full of holes, a sign of severe chronic anemia. The body trying to make more blood but failing. They mean one thing: iron deficiency. The body couldn't make enough red blood cells. Hunter-gatherers almost never had them. Farmers had them constantly. The difference: a Mesolithic refuse pit might hold the remains of 20 different species. Fish, deer, boar. A Neolithic one held 4. The same 4 everywhere on the continent was diet. And that difference changed everything about how these people lived and died. Hunters ate everything: fish, meat, nuts, berries, roots, dozens of different plants. Their food came from rivers, forests, and coastlines, wide and seasonal. Farmers ate wheat and barley and more wheat, the same few crops. There was a dangerous gap in the farming calendar between planting and harvest. The grain stores ran low. Every spring was hungry season. Every spring, people starved. Hunters never had this problem. Wild food was available year-round from different sources, day after day, month after month. Lots of calories, but not enough vitamins. The hunters ate a buffet. The farmers ate bread. Every single day, even children showed the damage. Enamel hypoplasia lines and pits on their teeth from periods of severe illness during childhood. Each line a crisis, they barely survived. Neolithic children were sick 3 times as often as hunter children. The teeth kept score. A single Mesolithic refuse pit might hold bones from 20 different animal species. A Neolithic one had maybe 4 cattle, sheep, goat, pig, the same 4 everywhere. The bones got thinner too. Less dense, weaker than the hunter bones from CT scans showed it clearly. The hunter femur had thick, dense walls. The farmer femur was thin and porous. Same land, same water, same sunlight, different food, different bones. The same land just a few centuries earlier. Same soil, same climate. Weaker people. And the work was brutal, grinding grain by hand, hours every day. The same motion. Ancient DNA from Neolithic dog bones showed the same animal pathogens. Dogs got sick too. Every species in the farmyard was sharing diseases, a web of infection, over and over, wearing out the joints, arthritis in their 20s. Their joints were wrecked by 30. The grinding never stopped. Schmorl's nodes in the spine, herniated discs. The grinding posture put enormous pressure. Harris lines inside the bones. Dark bands where growth stopped during illness or starvation. Neolithic bones were full of them. Each line a crisis. Fever, hunger, infection. Neolithic children had 4 to 7 growth arrest lines. Hunter children had 1 or 2. On the lower back, day after day, year after year, the damage was permanent. By 30, a Neolithic farmer's body looked like a modern 60-year-old, and they died younger, 5 to 10 years earlier than the hunters they replaced. The quern stones themselves were worn down by thousands of hours of grinding. Stone dust from the grinding got into the flour. Every meal wore their teeth flat. Dirty wells, dirty air, dirty soil. The farming village was a death trap nobody could see. By 40, if they survived, the roots were exposed. Infection was constant. Cemetery data from across Europe tells the same story. Farmers dying in their 20s and 30s, while the hunters who came before them were reaching their 40s and 50s. But the teeth told the worst story of all. Cavities were almost unknown in hunter-gatherers. Then farming started, and suddenly everyone's teeth were falling apart. A bad tooth could kill you. No dentist, no medicine, just infection eating through bone. Starchy grain feeds the bacteria in your mouth. The bacteria make acid. The acid eats enamel. Cavity rates jumped from under 5% to over 50%. A tenfold increase, all from one change switching to grain. The mouth bacteria changed too. The old mouth was diverse. Dozens of bacterial species living in balance. Low acid, healthy gums. The new mouth was dominated by Streptococcus. High acid, constant attack on the enamel. Ancient tartar from teeth proved it. Cavity-causing bacteria appeared when grain appeared, and it wasn't just cavities. Abscesses formed at the roots. Infections spread into the jaw, into the skull. Some of these infections were fatal. Death from a rotting tooth. Micro-CT scans showed decay, burrowing all the way from the surface to the nerve. Once it reaches the nerve, it is over-infection, swelling, bone destruction. Dental abscesses left holes in the jawbone the size of a fingertip. The infection ate 5% to 40% in 2,000 years. The genome was being rewritten in real time through solid bone. Without treatment, the infection could reach the brain. The oral microbiome completely shifted from diverse and harmless to simple and dangerous. The farming diet didn't just rot teeth. It rewired the entire ecosystem inside the mouth. But teeth and bones were just the start. The real killer came from the animals. For the first time, humans lived right next to their livestock. Same house, same water, same air. In some villages, families slept in the same building as their cattle. Cryptosporidium and Giardia thrived in livestock, contaminated water, waterborne parasites that barely existed in mobile camps now poisoned every drink from the village. Well, every major disease that shaped human history started in a Neolithic farmyard. Tuberculosis jumped from cattle, brucellosis from goats, influenza from pigs, measles from cattle, whooping cough from pigs, the common cold from horses. Living with animals meant breathing their air, drinking their contaminated water. The molecular clock on Brucella showed the same pattern. It diverged from its wild ancestor. Right when goats were domesticated, the goats got sick too. Shared living, shared suffering. Their wells were dirty. Animal waste seeped into the groundwater. Parasites everywhere. The bacteria got better at hurting us. And we had nowhere to run. Ancient DNA proved it. Researchers pulled TB straight from bones 7,000 years old. Every generation at Catalhoyuk was a little sicker than the one before. The settlement was slowly poisoning itself, but they had nowhere else to go. They were trapped. The village was killing them. But leaving meant starving. LBK pottery was decorated with distinctive linear bands. The same style from Hungary to France, a single visual identity, one culture, one way of farming, one set of diseases spreading together. The molecular clock dated the jump. TB moved from cattle to humans right when farming began. The bacteria evolved with us, getting better at infection with every generation. Ancient pathogen DNA pulled from Neolithic ribs showed early TB strains near the root of the tuberculosis family tree. The disease started simple and got worse over thousands of years, and crowding made it worse. Hunter camps held maybe 5 to 10 people per square kilometer. Farming villages packed 50 to 100 into the same space, perfect for spreading disease. Hunters moved too much for epidemics. Farmers stayed put, and the diseases found them. Ancient coprolites told the rest roundworm, whipworm, parasites that barely existed in mobile groups now infected almost everyone in settled villages. Salmonella was found in Neolithic bones too. Another animal pathogen that made the jump. The ancient strain was weaker than the modern one. The bacteria got better at hurting us over time. Even gut bacteria changed. Ancient coprolites showed the farming gut had less diversity, more inflammation, fewer species of bacteria. The farming gut was a damaged gut. The DNA tells the rest of the story. Immune genes changed fast during the Neolithic. Certain immune variants doubled in frequency within just a few hundred years. That only happens when people are dying from infections in huge numbers. The survivors, the immune system was being rebuilt from scratch. Old defenses designed for a hunting lifestyle were useless against farm diseases. New defenses had to evolve fast, and they did. Passed on the right genes. The ones who didn't have them simply died. Natural selection doesn't care about pain. It only cares who survives. The violence left scars in every LBK cemetery across Central Europe. The women traveled, the men stayed, and the violence followed the land. Selection coefficients of 5% for human genetics, that is extremely fast. TLR1, TLR6, NOD2, genes that fight bacteria in the gut and lungs, all under heavy selection pressure. The disease load was rewriting the human genome in real time. DNA methylation patterns changed too. Chemical switches on the genome that control how hard the immune system fights. The switches were reset during the farming transition. Even the way genes turned on and off changed. Epigenetic marks at immune regions shifted between pre-farming and farming populations. The immune system was being reprogrammed. Farming created a disease factory, and the genome had to adapt or die. The proof is written into specific sites. Catalhoyuk in Turkey was one of the first large settlements. 8,000 people packed into mud brick rooms with no streets. They climbed in through the roof. The rooms averaged 25 square meters for a whole family. No windows. They buried their dead under the sleeping platform. Every night above decomposing bodies. No windows. No chimney. Sleeping on top of the dead. And they called this progress. Soot coated the insides of their skulls. from breathing smoke in rooms with no ventilation. Experimental archaeologists rebuilt a Catalhoyuk room within 30 minutes of lighting the fire. The air exceeded every modern safety standard. The smoke had nowhere to go. The lungs of Catalhoyuk residents were coated in carbon particles, permanent damage from years of indoor smoke. By their teens, their breathing was compromised for life. Children showed rickets, bowed legs from vitamin D deficiency, too much time indoors, respiratory infections, tuberculosis, parasites, anemia. The skeletons from Catalhoyuk showed some of the worst health in all of prehistory. A third of the population never reached adulthood. Infant burials under the floors. Tiny skeletons curled in clay pits, barely 30 centimeters wide. Nearly a third of all children at Catalhoyuk never reached their 5th birthday. Ancient DNA from Scandinavian sites showed the mixing happened slowly. Over many generations, not a single event. Farmer and hunter DNA blending together century by century. Art covered the walls, bull skulls, hunting scenes. A rich inner world. Despite the suffering, Catalhoyuk lasted for nearly 2,000 years. Generation after generation, the healthier group survived. The sicker group shrank. The DNA kept score over centuries. Living in those toxic rooms, having children burying them under the floor, carrying on. Trapped inside rooms, too small and too toxic to live in comfortably. In Germany, the LBK farmers told the same story. They spread farming across Central Europe in just 600 years, clearing forest, planting crops, building longhouses. They built enormous timber houses, 20 meters long, raised cattle, grew wheat and lentils. Families at one end, cattle at the other, shared air, shared diseases. Hundreds of LBK villages spread across Central Europe, all built the same way, all eating the same crops, all catching the same diseases. A single culture copied 1,000 times. Isotope analysis showed women often came from distant villages, moved for marriage. The men stayed. The women traveled. Ancient DNA confirmed the pattern, and the LBK skeletons showed the same decline, shorter than the local hunters. More cavities, more anemia, more joint damage. The farming trade-off was the same everywhere. DNA kinship studies showed the men in each village were closely related. Fathers and sons, brothers and cousins, generations of men staying on the same land. But the women came from outside. Every generation, new wives from neighboring villages. Strontium isotopes proved it. The women grew up eating different water, different soil, different food. Their bones carried the chemical signature of their birthplace. The strontium signatures in the women's teeth didn't match the local geology. They grew up somewhere else, eating different food, drinking different water, then moved here to marry. And then there was the violence. LBK sites like Talheim showed mass graves, double the babies, half the lifespan, but twice the population. The math always wins. 34 people killed around 5,000 BC. Skulls smashed with stone axes. DNA proved they were a single family, 3 generations, grandparents to grandchildren. 3 generations killed in one morning. Nobody was spared. 70% hit from behind. This wasn't a battle, it was a hunt. The young women were missing from the dead, probably taken the first evidence of raiding. At Talheim, some victims had defensive fractures on their forearms. They tried to block the blows. The paleo diet movement is unknowingly trying to reverse the Neolithic transition. Eat like a hunter, avoid grains, 10,000 years of farming. And some people want to go back. Others were hit from behind while running, cut down from behind in their own village. Isotope analysis showed the attackers came from a nearby settlement. Neighbors killing neighbors. For women in European prehistory, farming created something worth stealing. Same tool for clearing trees and cracking skulls. Farming invented organized violence, stored grain, owned land, penned animals. For the first time, there was something worth killing for. Villages started building walls, ditches, palisades. The defenses appeared only in the final centuries of LBK culture, when the fighting got bad enough to need them. Late LBK villages built defensive ditches and wooden palisades, walls around farming communities. The need for defense proves the violence was constant. Not a single event, but a way of life. Every European alive carries the scars of this transition, written into their immune system. At Skonek Killian Staden, another mass grave, 26 people thrown in a pit. Every victim showed blunt force trauma, men, women, and children of all ages. Farming created surplus. Surplus created inequality. Inequality created war. But here is where the DNA reveals the biggest surprise of all. The farmers didn't just get sick, they got replaced. In the centuries after farming arrived, something strange happened. The farmers were failing, and the hunters were coming back. Hunter-gatherer DNA started showing up again in farming communities. The local hunters were mixing back in, or the farmers were dying off, and the hunters filled the gaps. In some regions, hunter ancestry went from 0 back up to 30%. The resurgence was strongest in the north, where farming struggled most. The comeback of hunter DNA wasn't just Scandinavia. In the Balkans, in Iberia, in Britain, hunter-gatherer ancestry crept back into farming communities. The same pattern everywhere. Some scientists think the farmers were weakened by disease and the hunters were healthier. So natural selection slowly favored the hunter genes. The healthier DNA won. Multiple ancient DNA studies confirmed it. The pure farmer genome was shrinking. Either way, the farmers were losing ground. Their own DNA was being diluted. In Scandinavia, the pattern was clearest. Farming arrived late, and the local hunters didn't vanish. They mixed with the farmers from the very first generation. Two groups living side by side, same village, completely different diets. Isotope analysis proved it. Some people ate fish and seal. Others ate wheat and barley. Same village, same century. The hunter was taller and healthier. Side by side. Carbon isotopes showed marine diet versus grain diet. Nitrogen showed meat eaters versus plant eaters. The two groups formed completely separate clusters. No overlap at all. The hunters eating fish and game had better teeth, stronger bones, and fewer signs of disease. Bone collagen from the hunters showed high omega-3 fatty acids from fish. Strong bones. Good joints. The farmer's collagen showed the signature of a grain-heavy diet. Weak bones, inflamed joints. The chemistry of their bones recorded every meal they ever ate. And the hunters ate better than the farmers eating grain right next to them. The diet was the whole difference. Modern Scandinavians carry more hunter-gatherer DNA than any other European population. The fishing tradition never fully died. Even today, Scandinavia eats more seafood than almost anywhere in Europe. In Northern Europe, the farming problems were worst. Less sunlight, more time indoors. Children's bones bent under their own weight. Rickets from vitamin D deficiency. The DNA adapted. Lighter skin evolved to capture more sunlight. A direct response to the farming diet. Lighter skin. Milk digestion. These aren't ancient traits. They're farming scars. Lactase persistence barely existed before farming. The ability to digest milk as an adult. In 5,000 years, it went from 0 to 90% in Northern Europe. People who could drink milk survived famines. Milk was calories when the crops failed. The Tripilia settlements were the largest in the world at the time. Bigger than Mesopotamian cities. Circular layouts, thousands of houses, enormous communal grain stores. Then all of it burned. Soil exhaustion, disease, violence. The combination was too much. The megasites collapsed. Some farming communities collapsed entirely. The Trypillia megasites in Ukraine held 10,000 people. Then they were abandoned, burned, left empty. The soil couldn't feed that many sick people. 10,000 people. Then the soil gave out and everyone left. Nutrient analysis of the soil showed phosphorus and nitrogen dropping steadily over centuries of farming. The land was exhausted. The people were exhausted. The diseases kept coming. So if farming was so bad for people, why did it win? More babies, more often. That's why farming won. Not better lives, just more lives. A wheat field feeds 20 times more people per hectare than foraging ever could. Each person was sicker, but there were 20 times more of them. Farming women had babies more often. Settled life and grain porridge for weaning meant shorter gaps. Earlier weaning also meant more exposure to contaminated grain porridge. Babies went from sterile breast milk to bacteria-laden mush. Infant gut infections skyrocketed. A hunter woman had a child every 4 years. A farmer had one every 2. Earlier weaning meant less immune protection from breast milk, more infant infections. Double the birth rate. Even with higher death rates, the farming population exploded. 100 sick farmers can outlast 10 healthy hunters through sheer weight of numbers. And that is exactly what the DNA shows happened. Across all of Europe over 2,000 years, farmer genes slowly replaced hunter genes, not through war, through math. Farming didn't win because it was better for people. It won because it made more people. The farming revolution wasn't progress. It was a trade. Individual health for population size. Shorter lives for more lives. The trade-off was brutal but effective. Worse health per person, but more persons. The math was simple, and the math won. Every time the species won, the person lost. And the ancient DNA proves one more thing. The immune changes from the Neolithic are still visible in living Europeans. Specific immune gene variants that were rare before farming are now common. The disease pressure from 5,000 years ago permanently changed the human immune system. Some of those ancient immune adaptations now cause autoimmune diseases. Crohn's, celiac, genes that fought ancient farm infections now attack the body's own gut lining. The mismatch between ancient immune genes and modern clean environments causes the confusion. The immune system expects parasites and bacteria that no longer exist, so it attacks the body instead. Crohn's disease, celiac, allergies, all higher in populations with the most farming ancestry. Celiac disease rates are highest in populations with the most Neolithic farmer ancestry. Ancient immune genes now attack your own gut. The body never stopped fighting the Neolithic. 2 billion people today still suffer from iron deficiency. Same problem the first farmers had. Processed grains still dominate the global diet. The Neolithic bargain never ended. The Neolithic bargain never ended. We're still paying for it. In every loaf of bread. 10,000 years of breeding made wheat more productive, but the trade-off stayed the same. Modern bred wheat has more calories per grain than ancient emmer, but less protein, fewer minerals. 10,000 years of breeding for yield. The plant got more productive. The food got less nutritious, more calories per grain, but fewer nutrients per bite. The math hasn't changed. Every European alive today carries the scars of the farming transition in their DNA. Genes shaped by diseases that came from living next to cattle 5,000 years ago. The ground remembers what they paid. Subscribe to find out what else the bones are hiding. The first farmers were already dying, and we're still living with the choices they made. The ground remembers what the books forgot.